Hello everyone, my name is Christian. Welcome back to my hobby blog. Today I am very depressed to be doing this. If you haven't heard already, yesterday, January 16th, 2025, the singular most authentic director that I have ever had the pleasure of having seen most of his films by, David Lynch, he passed away yesterday. And I tried to do this yesterday and I just could not do it. I could not summon the strength to do so because every time I started to talk about him, I instantly started sobbing and I just couldn't do it. So I had to take a day's rest and grieve and watch Elephant Man. That is sort of what was my conduit to get rid of all of my deep sadness at my or with my reaction to him dying. David Lynch, if you don't know, is my favorite director probably ever. I discovered him when I was 9 or 10 years old when I first saw Elephant Man, and I just instantly fell in love with that movie. A few months later, as I began to fall deep into my rabbit hole of Rammstein and discovering all the music, I started looking for movies with soundtracks that utilize Rammstein, and I found Lost Highway. And after watching Lost Highway, David Lynch has a really great way of sort of blowing normal movie making rules out of the window and just doing his own thing. And that is something that I have deeply respected him for, is following his own vision and being his own self and always being his authentic self, which one of these movies here did not really allow him to be that, and the movie suffers a lot for it. But his movies have always spoken to me. He has always been a director who has seen beauty in everything that he looks in or looks at. David Lynch has always had such like a wholesome soul, I feel like. He's always been able to tap into really dark material throughout Twin Peaks and Blue Velvet and all of his other kind of harder to watch movies, but I find that he also really highlights positivity and love and strength and all of those other things, charisma, camaraderie, brotherhood, everything like that, being nice to everybody. He's always had sort of those amazing aspects about his works. And I think Twin Peaks especially, you really see his love for people as you watch Twin Peaks, because everybody is worthy of love on some level. If you're not a supernatural evil entity, because they are not worthy of love. But I think the human characters, they all are very layered and very deeply interesting. And gosh, these movies have really affected me throughout my life, and I am so sad to see him gone. So, without further ado, let's go right into the ranking. I will be going chronologically. I already separated out what I haven't seen, and that is Rabbits, which I may have actually seen. I don't remember exactly when it comes out, so I'll just put at the end. I'll put season 3 of Twin Peaks way up there. But I gotta make sure that I'm not scrolling too much either, because I want to make sure my ranking video don't look too awful. But Straight Story is the final movie that I have not seen by him yet. I know Harry Dean Stanton, who was a regular collaborator with David Lynch, is in it, and I really want to see it, but I've just been waiting. And especially now that he's dead, I think I am a lot more ready to watch this now, because I didn't want to finish Lynch because I wasn't sure if he would be releasing any more movies or TV shows or seasons of Twin Peaks or whatever. So now that he's dead, I think it's time for me to finally watch this. But so, Eraserhead, where does it list on here? I think I'm going to have a really hard time with this ranking because I would say that most of these movies are God tier for me. But I will try to have a good spread throughout all four categories here. So, Eraserhead, I mean, this was one of the first David Lynch movies I saw after my initial discovery of him when I was 10 years old. I saw this movie in college for the first time, and it just blew me away. I was a freshman, rented it from the library, and I just love the camera work and the settings and the atmosphere. I love the characters as well. I love Jack Nance, who plays the titular Eraserhead. Yeah, I just love this movie. I think it's my personal favorite when it comes to his really early stuff, but I think as he goes into the 2000s, that's when his like just 10 out of 10 stuff happens. But I really love this movie. I love the interactions between the characters. I love the dinner scene with Jack Nance and his new wife and her family, and the chicken is doing its own thing. I don't know what it's doing, but man, I just love Eraserhead. This is definitely God tier for me. This, right from the get-go, David Lynch knew what he was going for, what his cinematic voice would be, and he nailed it. I love Eraserhead, and I've recently been informed that tier lists, it's usually from left to right, meaning that the ones on the furthest left is the higher rated, so I will try to follow those rules. Although in my head, the left side should be the lower rated and the right side should be the higher rated, but yeah, I've been informed otherwise, so I shall follow that rule. Now, Elephant Man. This is another God tier movie for me. I think overall it is a better movie watching experience than Eraserhead. Elephant Man has Anthony Hopkins in it, John Hurt. I don't know anyone else in the movie that well, but these two actors are just powerhouses from the beginning of this movie all the way till the end. I rewatched it last night and sobbed through most of it, especially the scenes between John Hurt, or John Merrick, I guess is the character's name, and Anthony Hopkins' wife, or Anthony Hopkins' character's wife, because she's a really accomplished theater goer, and she just has just some of the best conversations with him. And the things that John Merrick says just reduces me to tears every time. And it is such a great movie. I think I'm going to rate it above Eraserhead if it'll let me. There it goes. If it'll let. Yeah. So I think Elephant Man is a better movie to watch than Eraserhead, but I think Eraserhead affects me a lot more. So I'm just going to have these neck and neck for now. But next is Dune. I think a lot of people would say to put it here, and I would agree. I do not like this movie for the most part. I really enjoy seeing David Lynch's vision of Dune. But from what I understand, he never read the book and he wasn't interested in it. He was told the plot outline by Badalamenti, I believe, but that was about it. I think the big issue that I have with this movie is not the fact that it differs from what happens in the book. It's an adaptation by somebody who did not want to read the book, so I was not expecting an accurate adaptation, I think, is very accurate for the most part, but I think the issue with Dune that I have is that the voiceover narration completely kills the energy in every single scene. I think there's a version called the Alan Smithy cut, which is basically what made David Lynch never want to work in Hollywood again, which is that he was not allowed to have final cut, meaning that he wasn't allowed to have the final edit of the movie that he wanted, and that would be the version that would release in theaters. He did not agree to final cut because he thought that it wouldn't be that big of a deal, and it ended up costing him this movie. He has always viewed this movie as a nightmare. He always called it that movie. He never called it Dune. He never wanted to call it that. Or he never wants to talk about it, and I get it. Looking at the behind the scenes and watching the interviews on the Era Video cut of, or Era Video edition of this, it's very easy to see how this completely crashed and burned for him. But this also gave us Kyle MacLachlan, because this was his first role with David Lynch. He was completely unknown at the time. David Lynch picked him up and gave him the role of Paul Atreides, and the rest is history. Kyle MacLachlan is phenomenal as Paul. He is completely believable, in my opinion, as Paul, both as a younger Paul who is very sort of, he's a lot more innocent and naive than he is by the end of the book. And I think Kyle MacLachlan expertly acted both of those sides of Paul. And I haven't done a remake of the Dune review yet, but one of my main issues with Timothée Chalamet is that I thought he was perfect for the first part, but I did not like him in the second part, because I never saw him as that tyrannical leader that he becomes. And by the end of that book, and especially in book 2, because, I don't know, there's just something about Timothée Chalamet that I do not buy in part 2. So, I love the performances in this movie as well. You have a lot of great actors. You have Jack Nance as, God, what's his name? I can't remember the name, but Jack Nance is in this. You have Sting as Feyd-Rautha. You have Brad Dourif in this, who I forgot who he plays, but he's amazing. Brad Dourif is, everything he touches turns to gold, I feel like. You also have Patrick Stewart in this, so like it's great on the surface, but when it becomes a movie where people start narrating and they're just saying out loud the things that are happening on screen and like lulling you into sleep, I think this movie really suffers. And that's the big anchor for me in terms of why this movie does not work for me. And it's a shame, because I thought this movie could be good, but it's not. I don't like it. I'm really thinking about putting Eraserhead down in the grate so that there's some, I guess, spread. But the issue is that this is getting knocked down a lot. It's getting cut off from the screen. So apologies for the fact that you can't really see this. Let me see if I can zoom out a little bit. Okay, there we go. Perfect. Okay. So, with that said, Dune, I think, is a movie that's watchable. It's a lot more watchable than people give it credit for, but I don't think it's that good. I think it is belonging within the weak tier. Blue Velvet. I love Blue Velvet. This movie has Laura Dern and Kyle MacLachlan together, and they're both fantastic. Dennis Hopper's a villain as well. Brad Dourif is in this. Jack Nance is in this. Like, it's phenomenal. But I've always not been as big of a fan as Blue Velvet as others have been. I really love it. I love it on the surface, but it's not a movie that I ever watch that often by David Lynch. I don't know what it is. I love the performances. I love the themes. I love the cinematography, of course. Like, I love everything about it. I don't know how to explain it. It just doesn't do much for me. Or it doesn't do as much compared to his other films. So I want to put it kind of in the great tier, but I think it belongs in good because Eraserhead I watch often because it's like 80 something minutes. It's really quick. Blue Velvet is longer, or at least feels longer. Isabella Rossellini is fantastic in this as well. It just doesn't. I don't connect to it as well. I'll say that. I do think it's a 8.5 out of 10 though. Like, it's not to say that I think it's a bad movie. I think it's fucking awesome. I just don't connect to it as well as I do his other films. So that's why I'm going to put it in good. I want to keep it a little spread out so that there is some variety because I don't want all of the movies to just be in God tier, although I think most of them are God tier, but that would not be as fun. Twin Peaks. This is really complicated for me, and I'm only going to be talking about seasons 1 and 2 for this particular one. Season 3 is going to be right here. I will talk about that later. Season 1, I think, is the best TV season of all time. I love season 1 of Twin Peaks. Season 2, I do not love. I love up to a certain episode that David Lynch was involved in, and then he left the show and didn't come back until the final episode or the final 2 episodes. And those final 2 episodes are some of the best material that David Lynch has ever done. But that does not mean that the 10 episodes or so that I cannot stand of season 2 puts it into God tier or even great tier. But I don't think it's only just good. I think it's, I think I rate it above Eraserhead. Because Eraserhead, you only have a small handful of characters, but the cast of characters that we get to know and love in Twin Peaks is just so many of them and so varied. And they're all wonderful. I love everybody in Twin Peaks. It's just, Twin Peaks is the ultimate cozy blanket for me when it comes to David Lynch. Twin Peaks is what I watched the most throughout my life. The first time I saw Twin Peaks, I watched the first episode, which was actually shot as a movie and was done as a movie. It's 90 minutes, I believe. It's called The Premiere. It's basically a feature-length movie, but it's episode 1 of Twin Peaks. I've seen that many times since since I was a freshman in high school. Twin Peaks is groundbreaking, revolutionary, a masterpiece when it's good. When it's really hitting its stride, I think it is a masterpiece and one of the best things that David Lynch has done. But season 2 really makes it suffer. Yeah. I don't want to talk about spoilers, obviously, because I want people to watch it and be surprised by it. But I think I'm just going to have to put it in great right now, above Eraserhead. But But at the same time, I do think it's God tier. The first two episodes, or first two seasons, well, the first season and the first few episodes, and then the final episodes of season two. But yeah, I'm having a hard time. I don't think. Uh, yeah, I'm gonna put it above Eraserhead. I think Twin Peaks is better than Eraserhead. That doesn't feel wrong to say that. Wild at Heart. This is Laura Dern and Nicolas Cage. It's amazing that Nicolas Cage was in a David Lynch movie. It's just one of those things that I don't ever think about. And I never think about the fact that Wild at Heart was actually directed by David Lynch. It is such a different movie, in my opinion, but this is also the most referential, I guess, of David Lynch's movies, because if you watch his films, you can tell that he has a deep love for Alice in Wonderland and for Wizard of Oz. And this movie, especially, Wild at Heart, shows that. There are so many references and there's just so many references. Sorry, I blanked out. I just had a brain fart. But yeah, Wild at Heart is just phenomenal. I've only seen it once, so I don't want to speak too much about this because it's been a few years since I've watched it. I don't remember really all that much from it. I remember really enjoying it, but I don't remember anything plot related. And I remember the ending really well. I love the ending. I thought it was fantastic. But I think I'm going to put it in the good tier. I'm going to put it below Blue Velvet, because I do think Blue Velvet is a much better movie than Wild at Heart. I think I enjoy it more as a movie than Wild at Heart, but I think Wild at Heart I connect with more. I just never think about this movie ever, and I never want to rewatch it either. So that's why I'm just going to put it in good. It's not one that I really care about, but that I also don't dislike. I like it. I just don't feel strongly about this movie. But the movie after that, Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, the prequel to Twin Peaks. And you have to watch it after Twin Peaks Season 2. Because Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me is basically the entire show of Twin Peaks, or at least the entire history that we hear about through Twin Peaks, about the death of Laura Palmer. We get the entirety of it through her POV. And I think it is his best movie ever. It is not a competition for me. Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me is the most emotional of David Lynch's works. I think it is also the best acted of all his works. In terms of Cheryl Lee, she is an absolute scene stealer. She never had the opportunity to play Laura Palmer on the TV show. She was always a corpse. And we never saw her on screen, ever, really. We would always hear about her. And this movie gives us that. It gives us her perspective. It gives us her feelings. It gives her all of her scenes that we have only been hearing about for 2 seasons. And I just love this movie. This is the movie that I connect with the most deeply with, because all of these characters I care about so deeply, because I've seen Twin Peaks over and over and over again. And it wasn't until after my 3rd watch of Twin Peaks that I finally saw the movie. And it deeply affected me. I think it's just David Lynch's best. I would love to see a cut of this movie that incorporates the missing pieces, which I have not watched either, because the missing pieces has always been something I did not want to watch. because I don't want to run out of things that David Lynch has done to watch, because I just I guess I'm just not ready for that. But I think I will watch it pretty soon. I'm thinking about doing a David Lynch marathon tomorrow on Saturday the 18th, but we'll see. Yeah, Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me is his best. It's just jaw dropping how good this movie is. I just fucking love this movie. Uh, the performance by Cheryl Lee is just other level. It's just wow. The music in this movie as well. The music in all his movies and Twin Peaks is just phenomenal. Wow. I'm just sitting here like just in deep appreciation for everything Twin Peaks, because Twin Peaks I think is the most important series in my life in terms of impact. Uh, yeah, David Lynch has deeply affected me through his works, and Twin Peaks, I think, I don't know, it just feels like that entire town is like my family. Everybody, whether good or bad, in that town is kind of feels like family. Everyone just feels as if I know them really, really well, and I love seeing them on screen, no matter what type of scene, except for season 2, Slog. But it's just amazing how amazing Twin Peaks is. If you haven't watched it, please go watch it. It is phenomenal. Lost Highway. It's almost half an hour I've been doing this. Lost Highway. This was one of the first movies I saw by David Lynch. This was actually the second movie that I watched by David Lynch. I watched it because when I was 10 years old, because I was going down a Rammstein rabbit hole. And I was also a big fan of Marilyn Manson, and they were both on the soundtrack to Lost Highway. So I was like, okay, great. Like, I'll watch this. This looks cool. I know nothing about this. I don't know who David Lynch is at this time. I loved Elephant Man, but I didn't connect that they were the same director. So I just picked it up. Just rented it from Netflix, so I saw it on Netflix streaming when it first came out. And my entire life changed. I remember watching this and feeling it like I had woken up as a human being. I feel like I grew up that day because the way that I watch movies, and especially Lost Highway with how confusing and complex that it is, it really smashed everything to pieces in how I viewed film. I never knew that you could do what you could, or do what David Lynch did in this movie and movies. And it just really stayed with me. And I remember looking up the director afterwards, being like, David Lynch. I was like, that sounds familiar. I don't know what it sounds like. Well, I don't know who that is, but it sounds familiar. And then I saw he had done Elephant Man, and I was like, I guess I have a favorite director now. As much as I knew about directors back then at 10 years old or whatever. And Lost Highway just, I feel like the rest of my life happened because of David Lynch. Not what has happened in my life, but I feel like if I didn't watch Lost Highway that day that I did, I feel like I would be totally different. My entire life would be in a totally different place. David Lynch and Lost Highway particularly just really dug deep into my brain and my subconscious. And that's what David Lynch has always been able to do very effectively, is connecting with that worm within each of our brains that, like, it just taps into some sort of energy that I don't know how to explain. And David Lynch had his meditation practices that he would always advocate for, and he spoke highly of. And I have a feeling that if I was to start doing that meditation that he would talk about, I think I would finally understand where that energy is coming from more. But David Lynch is just a genius, in my opinion. And Lost Highway, I would say, is genius level. But it is also very confusing. I would say this movie is up there with Eraserhead. I would not put it above Twin Peaks, though, because Lost Highway is just a movie I never watch. It's one I watch maybe once a year, maybe twice a year at most. But I never get much meaning out of this anymore. And I feel like I need to like live life more in order to get this, because there's so much happening in this movie. Excuse me, I'm having hiccups. And Lost Highway is really long as well. I think it's like 2.5 hours, and it feels like it. But yeah, I think I would put that below Twin Peaks, because I think Twin Peaks is just a really easy watch for me. But Mulholland Drive. This was, I guess, his first movie in the 2000s that he made. And I love it. I love Mulholland Drive. This was the third movie I watched by him. I remember watching this in high school. So it was quite a few years later. And I watched it and I was like, oh my god, I love this movie. I don't understand it, but I think this movie is just god tier. I enjoy it more than Twin Peaks. I love both of these actresses, Naomi Watts particularly. Naomi Watts has always been one of my favorite actresses, and that's because of her work in David Lynch's works, and also in Funny Games and the the various other cult movies that she's done. She does a lot of really great, like, lesser known movies, and I think she's a star. She's like one of the most incredible actresses in Hollywood, and it is amazing to me that she doesn't do as much of these like Lynchian movies, because she fits right into every single one of these type of movies. She is always utilized so well by David Lynch, and she just seems like one of the warmest people that you could ever know. Like, watching her interviews on these Criterion Collection editions of these movies is just fantastic. I love doing it. It's fun to listen to her talk. Yeah, I just love Mulholland Drive. And this movie is an entire vibe. It's just incredible from beginning to end. It's constantly taking turns and twists. It has some really scary parts in it as well. The woman in the alley, for example, I remember that I was having nightmares from that as a kid in high school, and it was just incredible. I love Mulholland Drive. It's one of my favorites. So, Inland Empire. I just watched this actually a few months ago for the first time. With the Criterion edition of it. And I loved this movie, but at the end of the day, this was just an experiment by David Lynch, where he grabbed his camcorder and he would just film for hours and hours. And I think there's like another 2 hours of missing footage on this Criterion edition. But my issue with this movie is that it's just really fucking long. And David Lynch, I think, should never go beyond like 2 hours, 2.5 hours maybe. Because what he does within the constraints of time that he has is incredible. In this movie, there's a lot of repetition. It's a lot of him kind of shoving the camera into the characters' faces. and it gets a little old at times. I don't like it for a while, but I think by the end of the movie, it really became one of the most surprising of the I guess of his filmography. It just really surprised me how much I ended up loving it. But I really had a hard time getting there. I had a lot of trust in David Lynch when I was watching it. I never like had to shut it off or whatever. Like I was never going to do that. I went in fully full mind open, uh all that, and it was incredible. But again, it's 3 hours long, and it takes a while to get there. But once it gets to that point that it becomes your standard David Lynch, just awesome, I think it just keeps going. But I cannot rate it above Wild at Heart. But maybe I can. I cannot put it above Blue Velvet, though. That's for sure. But I cannot put it above. Well, I can't put it above Blue Velvet, but I can put it above Wild at Heart. But I don't feel good doing that because I think I've seen both of these only once. So I'm just going to keep it there for now because I'm going to go with my gut. I think Inland Empire is a little bit more enjoyable, or at least stays with me more than Wild at Heart, but they're about the same to me. They're both really good, but they're not great, unfortunately. And I feel bad, by the way, for putting Blue Velvet in good, but it's not better than Eraserhead. And Eraserhead, I think, is going to be my boundary for great. Twin Peaks Season 3. One of the most incredible just projects that David Lynch has ever done. I love this. I think it's as good, if not better, than Mulholland Drive. Is it better than Elephant Man? That does not feel right at all to say that. But I do think I had a better time with it than I did with Mulholland Drive. I love Mulholland Drive. This is God tier, obviously. This is the top of the top. Best of the best. But I think the thing that I really love about this is that before Twin Peaks Season 3, the last thing that we got from David was Inland Empire, which was not liked at all when it came out. And people to this day still don't really like it. I think the Criterion restoration fixed that a lot by having the camcorder footage not look like camcorder footage anymore. But Season 3 is just... Season 3 was like our final, like, hurrah of David Lynch. It is absolutely his magnum opus, in my opinion, because it has everything about his career that I love. It has the really large cast. It has many different storylines going on that weave itself really expertly from beginning to end. This is 18 hours of content. Like, it's 18 episodes, I believe. It's really long. It's amazing. I never tire of it. I've only seen it once because although I've seen this, the original 2 seasons many times, Season 3 is just something special. It is not something that you can just binge watch. You have to really enjoy it and really engage with it. Twin Peaks Season 3 is the best thing that David Lynch has ever created. But I think my issue with it is I just haven't watched it as much as the others. I think these two are absolutely deserving of having the top 2 spots. I don't think I would put Season 3 in the top 2, but I've always, when I talk about how much I love David Lynch, and give my rankings and give my top three, these three are always the most consistent that I talk about. I used to say Eraserhead was my favorite movie, but it really isn't. All these different movies that I put above it are just that much better. Uh, Everything from Eraserhead and up is a really easy 4.5 out of 5 for me, if not 5 out of 5. Eraserhead is 5 out of 5 for me. Mulholland Drive is 5 out of 5. All of these are 5 out of 5. Twin Peaks is the only one I would say is like 4 out of 5. But that's because of season 2. Season 2, I just don't like. So there's really nothing to do with that. But Rabbits, I'm just going to say that I haven't seen it because if I have seen it, I don't remember anything about it. But yeah, this is my ranking for David Lynch. I hope that it didn't get cut off too much or anything like that. I hope this was fun to watch. Life is going to be different, is basically all I have to say. Life is going to be different without David Lynch. And I don't know how different it will change. But all I know is that this has been the most devastating death in my life. Losing David Lynch was not something that I wanted to happen, let alone the third week or second week of January. This is such a tragedy. It's such a sadness for me. I'm just broken up by it, and I'm really happy I didn't do this ranking yesterday because it would not have been this long. I would have just been sobbing the entire time, but this was a lot of fun to do. Let me know what you think of the ranking. What would you rank these movies as, or where would you put them? Thank you all so much for watching, and please have a great rest of the weekend.